So welcome everyone today to How to Develop an Effective Content Marketing Strategy from SilverTech. We're a digital marketing agency working to redefine how businesses engage with and understand their customers. I am your host, Ian Hughes, content strategist here at SilverTech. I write for SilverTech's blog, podcast, and webinars. I'm joined again by Samantha Maltis, SilverTech's principal strategist, marketing manager, and content marketing strategy expert. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, Ian.
This is the third in our series of Lead to Loyal webinars. Lead to Loyal allows marketers to navigate and optimize the customer experience better than ever before. By understanding each individual customer interaction, SilverTech drives engagement with integrated business intelligence to enhance both customer-facing and internal user experiences. The agenda for today's webinar looks like this. We're going to talk about content strategy versus content marketing strategy. We will then answer the question, why do I need a content marketing strategy? We will go into the essential elements of a content marketing strategy. Then we'll talk how to implement a content marketing strategy. And finally, we'll wrap things up with priorities and key performance indicators.
So before we dive in, let's just do a quick show of hands. How effective would you rate your content marketing efforts? So I'm going to launch this poll. All right, so we have some pretty interesting results. So it's an even split.
That's great.
All the way down. So a third of you see your content marketing efforts as mostly effective, a third not very effective, and 33% are unsure, and with about 75% of you voting. So that's a great response. So everyone's going to take a little bit out of today. And unsure folks, the KPIs are definitely going to be an interesting part for you. And then the mostly effective and not very effective, we're going to show you how to take everything to the next level. So great. Thank you all for your participation there.
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much. So let's get into content strategy versus content marketing strategy. Well, before we go too far, what is content? As modern marketers, we've accepted content as a catch-all for almost every aspect of our work. The emails we send, the blogs we write, and the social posts we craft. And of course, the accompanying images, infographics, videos. But let's open the dictionary and take a look at the various definitions of content. When used as a noun and pronounced content, its primary meaning is the things that are held or included in something.
And that definitely works, but content is the message in our email and not the email itself. It's a really important designation. And what is the message? You might be inclined to think that it is the copy in the body of your email, but it's not. So for content marketers, the message is always the call to action. So to round out our definition, I'd like to include the definition of the noun content, a state of satisfaction. So our definition of content is then a message that prompts action designed to deliver a state of satisfaction.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Poetry. Over to our partners at HubSpot then, to define content marketing. Content marketing is a marketing program that centers on creating, publishing, and distributing content for your target audience, usually online, the goal of which is to attract new customers. The most common components of a content marketing program are social media networks, blogs, visual content, and premium content assets like tools, ebooks, and webinars. So to be effective at content marketing, it should naturally follow that we need a content marketing strategy, and more on that in a bit. Sam, what's the difference between a content strategy and a content marketing strategy?
So they're very similar, but it is an important designation to make. So a content strategy is more broad than a content marketing strategy, and a content strategy is beyond our scope today. A content strategy refers to every piece of content owned by an organization. So that's internal messages, external messages, marketing, sales, technical documentation, proposals, presentations, a lot of different things. A content marketing strategy helps us create effective content for marketing purposes.
Excellent, well put. Key insight here. So a content marketing strategy establishes brand standards and editorial direction for all content, including web, email, blog, and social channels, while always addressing your customers' unique pain points, challenges, and motivations. So, why do I need a content marketing strategy? Well, it's likely that you're on this webinar, you already believe in content marketing and understand that it's important to have a content marketing strategy. Perhaps the better question is, why do I need to document my content marketing strategy?
So we're going to have you all participate in another quick poll. I'm going to launch it right now. How have you documented your content marketing strategy? So I'm going to wait for some folks to come in here with their answers. We've got about 60% right now. I'm going to wait for that to get a little higher. Oh, you guys are such a great participation group. This is perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yes. All right. So this is actually typically what we see too. So I'm going to share the results with you. So you're in good company. So there are 30% of you have, yes, documented your content marketing strategy, which is about where we were in terms of mostly effective, which does correlate. And 70% say no, not yet, which again comes into where you're at in terms of whether or not you've documented. So thank you all for participating there. Okay.
And that brings us to the latest research from the Content Marketing Institute. So those with a documented content marketing strategy they're far less challenged with every aspect of content marketing, generally more likely to consider themselves more effective with every tactic and social media channel, and are able to justify a higher percentage of the marketing spend to be spent on content marketing.
So a documented content marketing strategy helps you strive for strategic, proactive, short-term and long-term content plans. It creates ways for you to communicate with your customers through both digital and traditional channels, leveraging competitive standards, industry best practices, and your unique customer needs.
Jay Baer, over at Convince and Convert, he spends a lot of time pushing marketers, pushing ourselves to ask yourself, what's your one thing? In fact, he's written an excellent book on the topic that I recommend, Utility.
It is a great book.
To create demand for your product or service in a now customer-centered universe, he argues, you must help and not hype. So to do so, you must be disproportionately motivational and inspirational, and you must create content that sets you apart. And to do so, you need to build a content marketing program from a documented content marketing strategy. Sam, thoughts here?
So it's all about what your customers want and not what your company needs, which is something that sometimes we forget when we're creating marketing content.
So to get back to the question, why do I need a content marketing strategy? Here's a couple of stats. Content marketing costs 62% less than outbound marketing, and it generates more than 3 times as many leads. And when content marketing adopters and non-adopters are compared, the adopters have conversion rates that are nearly 6 times than their competitors.
That's really impressive stuff. And everyone will get a copy of this presentation, so you'll be able to click into these links and read a little more further.
Absolutely. So now let's get into the essential elements of an effective content marketing strategy. Today we've identified 7 that will help you kind of get things down and move towards creating an effective content marketing strategy. So let's dive in. First, discovery and business needs. So you want to start first by defining your unique business needs and identifying your ideal customers in order to deliver structured, measurable, personalized, and relevant content appealing to leads and returning customers. Sam, how important is it to define your business needs as you set out to document your content marketing strategy?
So for a lot of us here on this webinar, that's really a check the box, right? That's an obvious thing. Something that we would expect is to know where you're going before you start to get there, but it's amazing how many people actually forget that step or don't incorporate the business needs into your overall content strategy. So very important to kind of go back, make sure that you have those accounted for before you start diving into how you're going to create content to solve the issues.
Excellent. Yeah, we've talked that we're delivering what your customer wants and not necessarily what your business needs content-wise, but the ultimate goal is to reach your business goals. So it is a great, kind of basic first step. Just define them, write them down, so you know where you're headed.
That's
Excellent.
A great point.
The second element of an effective content marketing strategy is your personas. So personas are the foundation of personalized one-to-one communication, fictitious representations of your audience. So by identifying your persona's ideal online experience, your business can create targeted content and navigate an ever-shifting digital landscape. We've spoken a great deal about personas in the past, and we have on-demand webinars available for you to dive further into this topic. But Sam, just quickly, how are personas and content marketing strategy related? So
personas are really a greater combination of a story for a particular audience. So when you're talking about your audiences, it could be anyone from age 18 to 55, men and women with or without children. And so those audiences, the way that you talk to those audiences are very, very different. So how you get into that level of how you understand what content is going to make people move down the buyer's journey funnel, you create these personas. And so these personas have backstory, they have geography, they've got your age, you've got what's really important to those people. And that allows us to put ourselves in really the mindset of those folks and really think about what would help me to get the information I need to feel comfortable with buying a product or a service from your company. So again, we've talked a lot about personas, but this is it. So you can grab those webinars online, but I would highly recommend that personas is really the first place that you start when developing a content marketing strategy. It just makes your overall content strategy so much more effective.
Excellent, thank you. The third element is that customer journey map. Again, we have an on-demand webinar out there on customer journey mapping, which is also known as the user or buyer's journey. Here's an example from HubSpot of their buyer's journey. So the customer journey map helps solve problems for your customers at every point they interact with your brand, and it's an invaluable tool in improving the overall customer experience. Here you will understand what content you need to create, the awareness stage, consideration stage, decision stage. Very helpful stuff.
And obviously this is just for a healthcare organization, so this will help kind of illustrate that, but it's very easy to do things for this in higher education, in e-commerce. There's a lot of different pieces of content that can fit within each one of these stages.
The fourth element of your content marketing strategy needs to be the content audit. It's part inventory, part research, part data, and part content creation. A content audit is a simple process that can yield invaluable ideas for new content. Do you have the right white papers, blog posts, or FAQs for each of your personas? You'll get the answers when you actually critically review your current content offerings.
That our content gets dated. Print pieces get stale very quickly, and your website it can also become very stale. And so the team has uncovered several opportunities. I always love to look at content audits as opportunities. They take a lot of time to complete. So it may be something that an intern could potentially do for you too. And also the intern has fresh eyes. So it's going through the personas and the ideal experience for those personas, and then looking at whether or not your website or a particular piece of content answers the questions that are really important to your persona. So for example, we worked with a higher education institution that what we found was the most important piece of content for folks who were identifying whether or not they wanted to go to this particular university, and that's the same case throughout all of higher education, is really whether or not they have their program. So if the program doesn't exist there, that's pretty much the end of the line. They're not going to continue to look at your organization if that's something they really have their heart set on. And this institution, it was so incredibly painfully difficult to find information about the individual programs, and that was something that we actually made a recommendation for them to change and to reorganize the website a little bit, so that is the primary thing that people see, and the conversion rates on that site went through the roof when it launched. So it's really easy to uncover low-hanging fruit doing a content audit. Really time consuming, but definitely worth the time.
Sure, yeah, great example. Huge win there from a content audit. The next essential element is to identify your content management system needs. So as you document your content strategy, you may not be in the market for a new content management system. However, there's great value at this step to take the opportunity to identify what you may need from a content management system. There are hundreds out there. Quick, steps here, you could probably identify what you're going to need from future content managements, whether it's upgrading your existing system or looking for a new one out there in the market. Sam, what difference can a content management system make towards your content marketing efforts?
So for all of your technologies that you have in your organizations, they need to be an enabler and not a hindrance.
Sure. Yep.
So it's really important that to develop as a part of the content strategy really what those needs are to be able to be enabled. So a few things that come immediately to mind, and we're going to talk a little bit about workflows in a minute, but your CMS system definitely needs to be able to enable workflows if you're going to go full-on content strategy. You need to be able to personalize. That is is normally a step that's a phase 2 or even a phase 3 for folks who are going through this effort. But being able to personalize by persona can make the difference really in conversion rates of maybe 5% to 7% or more. So really, really important to think through those two pieces of technology when you're looking at your CMS. And then there's a lot of other pieces that we can definitely talk through. And if anyone has any questions about this, please just put them in the chat pane. We'll be happy to answer them.
Absolutely, thank you. The next essential element is to identify your content types. So what types of content can you create? There are a multitude of options, but you have to ask yourself, do you have the capacity to produce video, a design team to create infographics, the right audience for webinars? So at a minimum, you should have a blogging platform that will facilitate several different types of posts. Here's an example here from our friends at HubSpot again, list of content formats. I apologize if it's hard to read in the on-demand version. We will have a clearer slide here for you to take a closer look at these. But a few thoughts on different types of blog posts. You can put out press releases, brand journalism, thought leadership, just to name a few. And of course, now you don't want to forget that most reliable of content types, email. Sam, how important is email to an effective content marketing strategy?
So you can see just from these graphs here, when we start working with folks on a content marketing strategy, email is actually one of the last things that we talk about, and it is the most effective tool in terms of getting folks to your content and getting them to consume it. So this is not Field of Dreams. If you build it, they may not come. So it is really important to look at all the different ways that you're also marketing your content. So not only do you have to have a content marketing strategy, you actually have to market that content too. And email is the fastest way to get information into their hands. SEO may play a part, social may play a part, even page search is going to play a part, but email by far all the time continues to reign king in terms of what is effective.
Absolutely. And this validates that from the Campaign Monitor. Even with the explosion of new technology, marketers keep coming back to email. The reason is clear now. For 10 years in a row, email is the channel generating the highest ROI for marketers. For every dollar we spend, email marketing generates $38 in ROI.
I would absolutely believe that, if not more.
Sure, yeah. Seventh element of your content marketing strategy is to establish workflow and governance. Develop governance and workflow plans to fit with your organization's unique procedures and uncover inefficiencies in your editorial workflow and website management process so that you can focus on content optimization rather than on the internal process. Sam, internal processes sometimes are the biggest hang-up in quickly producing effective content. Would you agree?
I agree. So you not only have to have an established workflow, you need to have an accessible workflow.
Sure.
So a lot of times what we hear is folks that involve themselves in the workflow process. I was actually just working with a client that had a CMO that was involved in every step of that workflow process, and they weren't accessible, and it was really hard for the team to adapt and to be nimble in what they were doing for content, especially on the social posts. So keep in mind as you're creating these workflows and these governance, keep them simple, keep them as simple as possible, keep them realistic, make sure that if someone does have to be a part of the process that there's SLAs in place so that you know what to expect, and that will alleviate so many frustrations later.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Yes.
And the eighth element, and our favorite, is to finally start brainstorming with a content plan and calendar. So here you want to schedule specific pieces of content and assign tasks to content creators. A content plan, this element of your content marketing strategy, can be simply just 1 to 2 pages that you update on a semi-regular basis. We recommend documenting out at least 3 months at a time. And then you can use your calendar within your marketing automation platform if you have one, your HubSpots or Pardots. They both have very effective calendar tools, or simply use a spreadsheet. As long as your calendar is visible to your entire team and it remains the source of truth for your publishing schedule, then it matters less what it looks like.
Exactly.
Sam, content calendars, the best ones you've worked with?
So honestly, sometimes the best one is the one that works for your organization. That's really all that matters. Yep. And so I've seen, like you said, HubSpot and Pardot. There's also third-party tools out there that have even built-in workflows and due dates and tasks and scheduling associated with them. Or it's as simple as a spreadsheet. And for some organizations, that is what works, and that's what's going to continue to work, and that is fine. It doesn't matter what kind of tools you have. It just matters that you're doing something. And the same thing, I want to take a second and talk about some social publishing tools like Hootsuite. Those can be effective tools, and they always kind of come hand in hand when you're talking about content calendars. Hootsuite is an effective tool. It won't ever be as effective as some of posting on the native apps themselves. Sure. So Facebook and LinkedIn especially have some issues with that. But it is important to maintain whatever voice you decide you need as part of your content strategy. So if you need to be posting 20 times a day, sometimes that's just not effective. If you need to be effective for you to do on your own without a posting schedule, but if you are just someone who needs to be out there once or twice a week, as is the case in some of our B2B clients, then you can actually get away without a calendar, a publishing tool. So it all depends on what your needs are, what your audience is really looking for, how frequently they want to hear from you. But just to keep in mind that really the best thing is just to be out there doing it.
Excellent, yeah. So let's dive into how to implement a content marketing strategy. Key insight: content marketing is not a standalone marketing technique that can thrive in a vacuum. Rather, it's something that needs to be integrated into your overarching marketing plan, as its principles will strengthen all your other marketing efforts. Thank you, Content Marketing Institute.
We love them.
So step 1, include your team. So we talked about this with personas and customer journey mapping. You want to interview those who are on the front lines. They may uncover pain points that your data research can't uncover. Thoughts there, Sam?
My favorite for including your team is normally in the realm of like a frequently asked questions or something like that. They're the ones who have the pulse on what's happening within your organization, what your customers are asking for, what your audiences are asking for. So definitely include them when you're starting to put together this content calendar. They always have a plethora of ideas for potential content options, like blogs or podcasts, things like that.
Excellent. Step 2 is to introduce your content marketing strategy to your entire organization. So the more people within your organization that understand the why behind your content creation, the better. Just as we recommend rolling out personas, customer journey map to your organization, we recommend a grand rollout for your strategy. The most effective content marketing programs utilize content from many different voices within your organization's walls. So if you want blog contributions from your leadership team or your sales team, the best way to do that is to share with them the reasons why you need their creative input. Sam, you agree?
Exactly. I love that you put the example of leadership team and sales team in here, because if there's anyone else on this call or on this webinar that have those teams, they can understand how important that is in setting expectations and asking for those things. So again, those are the folks that they're on the front lines, they have a great idea of what you would need to say to your potential audiences, but sometimes those are the groups that have the fewest amount of extra time, minutes that they can spend helping you market. So it's really good to, when you are doing a content strategy, do a grand rollout, make sure everyone understands what it is, and then how you're going to measure it, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute.
Before we get there, let's talk about step 3, is to stick to your strategy. So the 2 main pitfalls to avoid when developing a content marketing strategy are failing to document the strategy, we've talked about at great length, but then failing to stick to the strategy. An effective content marketing strategy serves as a reference for every piece of content you create, and it'll ensure that your content is on brand, supportive of your business goals, and reflective of your customers' needs.
One of the best things that I've heard recently is it's all about consistency, right? So you can't lose, similar to, you can't lose weight without being consistent. You're not going to get results from your content strategy without being consistent. So abandoning your strategy mid-flight could veer your content creation completely off course. That doesn't mean that your strategy is not a static document. Your content strategy should always evolve and should be revisited, and at a minimum at an annual basis, similar to what we recommend for personas.
Excellent. And then that 4th step, the ever difficult to do, measure and share results.
But my favorite.
Yes, critical. So how do you know if your strategy is working? The only way to know for certain is to measure the results. But it's critical to avoid vanity metrics. A page view on a blog is not enough. If you recall at the beginning of the presentation, we defined content as a message that inspires action. You need to be measuring conversions, actions. Of course, you can look at page views in relation to conversions, as it will give you insight into the conversion rate of a piece of content.
And it has often been said that content marketers are publishers, but that's not exactly the case. So we do want to clarify that. As Jay Baer at Convince and Convert points out, content helps achieve business objectives, not content objectives. So you're thinking of your business first here. A publisher wants page views, and a content marketer should definitely want conversions.
Which brings us to priorities and key performance indicators, KPIs. So the rise in content marketing and the rise in content that stresses the need for content marketing has made it very hard to get noticed online. Research from Content Marketing Institute, again, suggests that our heart is in the right place. 73% of us marketers want to create more engaging content. 58% of us want a better understanding of what content is effective and what isn't. And 55% of us want to create visual content. Very admirable goals. But what then are the key performance indicators to understand the effectiveness of your content at achieving these priorities? If content, the ultimate goal of content marketing, is to increase your brand's reach and bottom line, then the following are good indicators of reach. These are what I would call your publishing KPIs. These are your unique visits, your page views, your geography, device.
So these KPIs here will give you an understanding of how many people are viewing your content, how much of it they are viewing, when they are viewing it, and where they are viewing it from, and on what device. So obviously important metrics to know, but not true indicators of the effectiveness of your content. If we agree that the goal of the content is to inspire an action that leads to a reader or a viewer furthering their path to purchase, then the following action metrics are good indicators of how content will contribute to the bottom line, and then what we really want to be focusing on. So the content marketing KPIs.
Yes. So your content marketing KPIs are your click-through rates, your conversion rates, social sharing, and that bounce rate. So each of these KPIs indicate an action. So click-through rate is a measure of how many viewers take the next step after opening your email or viewing a social post. Your conversion rate is a measure of how many viewers engage with the call to action in your content. And social sharing is really a measure of how viewers are inspired to action that may inspire others to action. And of course, there's that bounce rate. This is an equally important factor to measure, as it gives insight into how many viewers, despite having been interested enough to get to your content, are not interested enough to hang around and take action. So that's bringing us towards the end of our presentation. Feel free as we wrap up, if there are any questions, to post them in the pane. So the previous metrics are available really through a combination of Google Analytics and really whatever publishing platform you may be using. They all will share with you the kind of the reach and unique views, that sort of stuff. But I think to truly demonstrate how your content contributes to your bottom line, the additional steps of instituting a lead scoring program with MQLs and SQLs is necessary. We will cover those in our next webinar and white paper of our Lead to Loyal series. That one is how to make the most of your marketing automation. A link to register will be included in our follow-up to this presentation. So we will also be following up after today's webinar with a link to an on-demand presentation and a copy of a white paper that accompanies this, how to develop an effective content marketing strategy. So if we breeze through anything, you can take time and go back and dive a little further in. We hope you have found value.
So we do have a question. The question is around what is, sorry, I'm just reading it here. How do you find those measurement KPIs? So what tools are available to look at those KPIs that we mentioned? So Ian did talk about Google Analytics, so that is one. If you're using any form of publishing, so even especially actually, the social channels have come a long way in showing what is available. So for example, the other day I was actually looking at tweets and some tweets that we had posted, and they didn't get likes, they didn't get any retweets, but the click-through rate on them was out of control. And so it depends too on the type of brand that you're trying to create. This was for an individual person, but that was really interesting. That person wants to be seen more as a thought leader, so not necessarily that they need to get retweets or likes or something like that, but for the folks that are already in their network, they are seen as kind of a person who delivers information. So we have a different thing to work on now, which is trying to get them to expand their network. But it was really interesting to see from the social perspective. And if you use a system like a Pardot or a HubSpot or even a Hootsuite, they all have some type of an analytics platform included.
Yeah, I find content marketers will kind of hobble together a few different tools because, if you are posting natively, you might want to use the native tools in Facebook or Twitter. But Google Analytics, if you want to track your conversion rates, you can put a tracking code on, say, the thank you page. So, so anyone who's gone through there. So again, you'll be able to track the action. So I think Google Analytics, your primary tool, and then kind of piecing together from native sites, and as you mentioned, kind of your publishing tools.
And so we have another question around examples. Can you send an example of a particular strategy? So I don't believe we have one that we can share that's not a client branded thing, but if you do a Google search for a content marketing strategy, I know the Content Marketing Institute has so many options out there, and that's actually normally where we start ours too. They're the thought leaders in the space, and as same thing with personas and those types of documents too. So everything that's included in our presentation today, if you do a quick Google search, you'll see a lot of opportunities, and you can put together something that will work for your organization. So it may not need to be as in-depth as some of those, so you can kind of pick and choose the sections that you want. And as always, if anyone has any questions, please feel free. We're more than happy to follow up with you about your specific situation.
Sure, and we will follow up with kind of the white paper that accompanies this presentation. At the end of that, I can kind of lay out those elements that we identified again, and kind of give a couple of pages there. But with each of those elements, if you're putting in a few paragraphs, kind of breaking to put in your personas and your customer journey map. And anyone who doesn't have those tools, we could always follow up with those if you're on here too, so you can kind of work through the paragraphs that you need to write to kind of document the business needs, then fill in your personas, fill in your customer journey map, and then it's a few more paragraphs to kind of fill in the rest of those elements that we identified.
Perfect. All right, so we are past our half an hour that we promised you that we would stick to. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Excellent. I look forward to following up early next week.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.